Okay, and the first question is, what makes you the most qualified candidate for this position?
Well, I think the contrast with my opponent is pretty dramatic. I have 20 years of experience on the Ventura County Board of Supervisors dealing with many of the similar issues that you would deal with at the state level. 20 years of being a high school teacher of economics at a public high school here in Ojai, California, I think gives me a pretty broad life experience. So just the amount of time I've been in public office and working with the public is one thing. But then in terms of the core values, at the other debates and forums that we've had, it's pretty clear that my opponent's core values on things like climate change and the role of government are 180 degrees from where I am. I think much more I think it's accurate to say he's much more aligned with where perhaps a President Trump would be on those issues. So I think that a combination of experience and where we are in terms of core values is the biggest distinction between the two of us and the biggest qualification that I have over my opponent for this seat.
If elected, what would the 37th District State Assembly seat mean to you?
Well, it would mean it would be an opportunity for me to continue what I've been doing at the Ventura County Board of Supervisors. And what's been important to me is to approach issues from the standpoint of what is genuinely good government for the public at large. And not sit there and say what's the right political thing to do, but rather figure out what the right thing is to do, and then go out and show people why that is the right thing to do and convince the public of that. So an opportunity to continue the good government. I think that we have a track record, I have a track record in Ventura County of many good government measures, pushes, major efforts overall. We restored fiscal stability to Ventura County and fiscal integrity when the budget was out of control when I was elected. In 2000, Ventura County had 0 reserves. They had 5 bond rating downgrades, and the county was a mess. They were spending one-time money on ongoing expenses, and as an economics teacher, that just didn't make any sense to me. So I came in and I had to take on a lot of powerful interests, but we got the budget back under control. Now today, Ventura County has 13% of its budget in reserves. We have the highest bond rating that you can get in the state of California or in the country as a county. And we're one of the model counties in terms of fiscal integrity. That's just an example, but everything from what we did in terms of land use preservation, protecting our open space and agricultural land, that I think is really good for the general public, and yet was fought very tenaciously by some special interests. I pushed through campaign finance reform so that we tried to take big money, and we did take big money out of our local campaign elections. And those are the kinds of things that I will be able to continue to do. And then the big thing is, if I take the seat, I think that on the issue of climate change, I can really provide, I think, some informed leadership on that issue, both in terms of trying to improve our storage of this green renewable energy. We'll never go to 100% renewable energy if we don't find a way to store it when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing. That's the next step, and that's something that I think I have a very good background in. The other thing is just trying to push this ball up the court and trying to get overall cooperation on the other next steps, carbon taxes, and the things that everybody will ultimately have to do if we're going to address the issue of climate change.
Now, the district covers part of Ventura and Santa Barbara counties that is a very diverse group of people with different backgrounds. How do you plan to represent all of them?
Same way that I did for 20 years on the Board of Supervisors. Try to get to know everybody, try to talk to everybody, try to keep the lines of communication open with everybody. I think it's absolutely essential, particularly in the divisive national scene that we have today. It's really important to be able to communicate. And so I'm going to take an issue, and as I start to study that issue, I want to approach all the major stakeholders, find out what their view is on that particular issue. And then I actually like to take the best arguments of one side and run those to the other side and say, this is what they're saying, what's your response? And as I take these arguments back and forth between the two, I start to develop in my own head what I think is the best solution. When you do that, there's two things that happen. You get much more confident about what you really believe in. And two, you have stakeholders on both sides that feel like they can communicate with you and talk to you about what the issues are.
Now, what steps would you take? Oops, I'm sorry, I skipped one. What would be your top priority if elected?
Well, everybody says that, and I have to say two things. One, the whole issue of climate change, like I mentioned earlier, we have to find storage capacity for the green renewable energy. And we have to move the ball up the court in terms of overall international, national, state, regional, local cooperation. But we don't have much time left, and the window is closing rapidly, and we really have to up our game there. And the other thing is this growing income inequality that we have in the country is just devastating for the people trapped at the bottom. We have people that have good talent, et cetera, but you get trapped at the bottom in this system that we have. It is really difficult. And they need affordable housing, and they need access to appropriate health care, and they need quality educational opportunities for themselves and for their children. And if we don't do that, we're not going to break this cycle that's out there. And that's not the only thing. That's just dealing with the symptoms of this. We really need to break this growing cycle because it's devastating for our country, devastating for our state, devastating for our counties of Santa Barbara and Ventura County.
What steps would you take to help with the COVID-19 recovery, both economically and from a public health standpoint?
Oh, we've worked really hard here in Ventura County, and I know people in Santa Barbara County have been doing the same. But we have conversations daily about this. But just a few programs that I would point out is that we actually took some of the federal funding that we received, and then we supplemented it with some of our own funding in the county, and we have provided grants to businesses. And it'll be over 5,000 businesses will receive grants from Ventura County to deal with their COVID impacts. And we did the same thing for rental assistance, and we've provided thousands of people with rental assistance. The other thing that I'm really proud of is that before COVID hit, we had already established a farm worker resource program. And that's a first of its kind program in California, where we've hired some people who are trilingual, Mixteco, Spanish, and English. And many of our farm workers only speak Mixteco. And these farm worker resource employees, they only have one job, and that is to try to help farm workers navigate living here in modern Ventura County, because we need to have this workforce, and they need to have better help and conditions. And so that farm worker resource program was able to leap in and already have all of the contacts with the farm workers. And so we were able to move very quickly in terms of trying to protect farm workers from COVID. It's one of the most vulnerable populations across the state. They had very high infections rates, and we were able to get on top of that, I think, sooner than most people in terms of trying to help them. So those are the kinds of things that I've been able to work on with the other board members and with the great staff that we have here.
What would you like people to know about you?
I really appreciate that question. I'll tell you one thing, and that is that 14 years ago, my wife and I took in a Mexican immigrant family, mom, dad, and 3 kids. They were having some financial trouble, and so they moved in with us. It was supposed to be just for a few months, and we ended up all falling in love with each other, and we all became a family. And now it's mom, dad, and 4 kids instead of 3 kids. But every day I became the education parent for those kids with my teaching background. So those kids, when they moved in with us, were kindergarten, 2nd grade, 4th grade. Those 3 kids have now all moved on to the college level and the college level work. One of them's finishing his senior year at Berkeley right now. We now have a 5th grader. But I've gotten to watch this mom and dad and these children from this Mexican immigrant family deal with the challenges of being a low-income laborer in Ventura County and trying to make ends meet, even though they have the support of us here in terms of their housing. And I am much more aware of the challenges on a day-to-day basis faced by low-income, hardworking immigrant families. And it's made me much, I always thought I was sensitive, but it makes me much more informed with my sensitivity in terms of that. And so I think that's something that I hope people will know. I know I kind of look like an old white guy, but I don't feel like an old white guy. I feel like a grandfather of a Mexican immigrant family that I really want to help be successful, and I want to change policies so that systemic racism that affects black people and brown people and minorities in this country are dealt with, that we come up with policies that make sure these people have good access to educational opportunities and that they can go through the same wonderful experience that all the other immigrant groups have gone through in America, and then let them have the opportunities to demonstrate that we should measure everybody by the content of their character and their skills and their abilities, and not by their skin color or immigration status.
What are 2 topics we haven't brought up yet that you would like to address?
Well, number one, I think you've done a very effective job in terms of doing that. I would like to address the fact that people in Santa Barbara don't know me as well as they know Santa Barbara public officials, but I am committed to, number one, taking the relationships that I have with Salud Carbajal and Monique Limon and Das Williams and Hannah Beth Jackson and Laura Capps. I have very good working relationships with those people, and I want to take that and use that to make sure I get to know all of the voices and different aspects of the personalities and interest groups and various immigrant groups and everybody that represents Santa Barbara County and a slice of Santa Barbara County. So it's important to me to get to know them, and I hope that they'll reach out and be receptive and give me that opportunity, because I will work very hard to try to continue the great representation that Monique Limon has brought to the residents of Santa Barbara County. And I'm really glad that I have I started my working relationship with Salud Carbajal when we were both supervisors and our districts bordered each other. And we worked on that great bike path that you see in front of La Conchita in terms of making sure that was on the beach side. Imagine that if it wasn't on the beach side, the things we had to do to make sure that that happened. And then with Salud, with Monique, we've worked on groundwater issues and water and all of the important issues that are there. So Santa Barbara County and Ventura County have many similar issues. And I guess that's one other thing I would like to leave you with, is that people need to know that I led the effort to stop Los Angeles urban sprawl from just overrunning all the open space and agricultural land here in Ventura County. I was a co-author of the SOAR initiatives. All the land zoned open space and agriculture can't be rezoned for development without a vote of the people. It's one of we have, I think, far and away in the state of California, the toughest anti-urban sprawl policies. And we need them because we're right next to Los Angeles County. But that's been a great buffer for Santa Barbara County also, to have Ventura County halting that rampant urban sprawl. So thank you for this opportunity. I really have appreciated it.